And it is to me a proof that it is important as an artist to listen to my gut feeling and to not necessarily follow any trend out there. And it's also the proof that I have the best team. I always knew it, but it's
Mhm.
as if it's like validation for external, because for the music to be heard, it means that I have a team that helped me make sure it reached the people.
Awesome. Well, I'm Adam, and this is about you and your journey in music, and we'll talk about the album coming out next month.
Yay.
Awesome. So,
Joy.
yeah. So are you born and raised in Canada originally, or?
I am born and
Okay.
raised in Montreal.
Okay. What was that like?
It's amazing. It is art since you're born, walking around, nothing but good music and street art everywhere. Things I love. So I love the city.
That's awesome. Did you grow up in an artistic household or a musical household at all?
Artistic, yes and no. I think everyone, as long as they're passionate, it's a form of art. But music has definitely been everywhere. My sister was studying in classical music and piano and opera singing. And my mom has always some music playing somewhere, some kind of music at some point in the day. So it's
Okay.
been a very free household full of music and arts. Yeah.
That's awesome. And when did you get into music? Did you start off on piano or anything like that when you were younger?
That's funny. We were talking about it with my sister not so long ago because my mom asked her to give me some lessons when I was younger. And I
Oh,
recall
really?
starting and then it stopped. And she told me it's because basically I would tell her, like, yeah, I'm going to practice. And I wouldn't because structure. And I didn't like
Yeah.
the fact that I had to keep my fingers separate. I wanted for them to cross over. I was not down with all the discipline. And
Right.
apparently my cousin would tell her, no, you play, I dance. And she would dance while my sister was playing. So her teacher career was very short-lived.
Okay. Wow. So your sister's older than you, I take it?
Yeah, she is. She is,
Okay.
and she's been studying it. But she's very disciplined, and I'm more of a free spirit in that sense.
Okay.
So it's been singing has been the one thing that I've been doing since I was a kid. I like to think that we all start off our life by screaming for air and joy.
Right. Oh, that's a great point. And then you ended up just taking voice lessons, or were you in musicals or chorus, choir, that type of thing?
No, actually, not at all. I would sing a lot just for fun. A lot with my cousin. We would just learn songs by heart. But I had quite a typical journey because I actually ended up studying and working in psychological support for employees and with autistic children, 2 to 4. And when I
Oh,
realized I
wow.
needed
You said
some
autistic
rest,
children?
yes,
Yeah, my
and
both
and
my
their
boys have
parents.
autism. That's awesome.
Really, I
Yeah.
feel like they are the most luminous beings alive. And
That's
it's just
awesome
about
to hear that.
it's about us acknowledging the freedom and the fact that being different is a blessing and its uniqueness should be cherished.
Hmm.
So I definitely enjoyed that a lot, but I realized that to a certain extent, I might be too sensitive to work, especially the adults, like the people in corporation were the ones that drained my energy and I
Oh,
needed
I
some
can't even
rest.
imagine. Yeah.
People are not always happy in their jobs. I'm telling you, it is
Yeah.
a
I mean,
fact.
it says something if you have to have a job. Your job is to be there to kind of, console them in a
Exactly.
sense. That's interesting.
Exactly. So when I stopped, I started making music just because it felt like the best form of acting therapy I could do for myself.
Hmm.
And basically, I never stopped. I loved it so much. And it felt like I was doing the same job of wanting to help people feel better,
Hmm.
but through a hidden medium. It's like, in a way, going to a show is like a group therapy, or
Right.
listening to music that speaks to you and what you're going through helps you go through it, feel less alone, feel connected to others. So I I feel like I found the right place for me to do exactly what I love while preserving myself at the same time.
Hmm. So this wasn't until much later in life. You were already working. You had already finished school. You're working a job, and then you
I,
decide.
yeah.
Were you always writing music, or was that something you always kind of did just alongside your actual career at that point?
I always did music. Mostly I always painted. That was the first form of art I
Oh,
connected
okay.
with. And it's funny because my mom always thought, when I told her I wanted to sing, she said, I always thought you would be a painter if you were to do art. But I feel like it's the same because I see music in colors. So it's just about expressing frequencies
Oh,
visually,
that's
or,
called there.
you
That's
know,
called something, right?
synesthesia.
Yes, yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
wow. You have that. That's awesome.
I think everyone does, but doesn't realize it. That's my personal
Okay.
opinion. You know, we don't always connect those parts, but I definitely see songs, each song has a color and makes you feel a certain way that you can link to a color.
Uh-huh.
So painting makes me feel like I'm painting the song. And I often paint the album before I actually write or create it so that I can have in mind the colors and really connect with that frequency visually and emotionally.
Is that
So
right? Whoa.
yeah,
So this next, or the album that you have coming out next month, did you paint something that inspired then what the entire album? Is that what happens? Like I
the funny thing is, for the first trilogy, I
yeah.
actually painted all of them before creating the albums. And this time I decided for this new reset, I wish to, I've been painting it throughout the creation of the album and still now. So I want to make sure that I'm painting all the way until the end of its process so that I can be living it at the same time, being more in the present, because this is one of the things I want to express through this album and this trilogy. We're not no longer in the past or looking back. We're appreciating the past and taking it in, but
Mhm.
in the now. So it's been a lot of fun doing it at the same time.
Oh, so the painting is still in progress.
It is, and I love it. I've made sure to do a lot of little details that will take forever.
Okay.
So
Have
I'm
you
gonna be
shown
in it for a
anyone
while.
what it is, or does anyone know what you're painting?
No, this one is all private. The first ones, the three first, I actually shared with a lot of people as I was doing it. I can even share with you. We had the
Oh,
blue,
wow.
the red, and then the yellow getting ready for the green. And this time it's all mine.
Oh my gosh. Those are beautiful paintings.
Thank you.
Do
Thank
you
you so
sell your
much.
art?
I don't, but I just
Good.
manifested that I want to make my first expo. I'm dreaming of that now. I would love to share with
Wow.
people.
Yeah, I would totally buy one of those. Those are beautiful paintings.
Oh, thank you. I'll give it to you gladly.
No, that I would have to pay for it, but that's wow. Those are
Thank you.
so cool. Well, okay, so I'm just curious. So you've always painted. It sounds like that was something that you've always just you've done. What is like an expression for what your whole life? I mean, if your mom thought you were going to be a painter, if you explored art, was that something you
Yeah,
just did as a kid and all the way up till now?
exactly. And I feel like it's still the kid in me who paints. Like I make music, but the 8-year-old is painting still and she's loving it.
Okay, I love that. And then with so when it came to the trilogy of albums that you've released over the few years, um, like so did you paint those three things that you just showed me? Was that, or all of them done, and then you went back and you're like, okay, blues, so this is why I'm going to go this direction? Because there's obviously like a through line through the whole trilogy of the albums.
Yeah.
Or was it like, okay, here's the blue one's gonna portray this, and then once you finish that album and started working forward, did you move on to the next? Like how did that work with those first three albums?
I painted and thought about them as a whole, as one piece. So in my
Okay.
mind, it's kind of it's like three chapters of the same book.
Uh-huh.
And I wanted to, because it's one history really when you think about it, and it's
Yeah.
how connected, for example, I really saw like a really clear and obvious continuity in the history that is being told emotionally through music in Black America, especially. You know, blues, the element of water, of silence, crossing the ocean from one continent to the other. Um, then I felt like red was the revolution, was fire, but specifically was lava, you know, because
Oh.
lava, it goes slowly, but it burns everything. And it leaves behind a soil that is way more fertile, that is much more fertile. And that's what revolution does, really. Sometimes it will burn everything, but so that we can rebuild something that makes more sense for our community and our society in general. And then the yellow to me was the sun, the light, um, the joy that came out of the ramifications of jazz. There's this the soul, disco, suddenly it was glittery. We were talking about things that related to everyone, love stories, dancing, going to parties. You know, the topics even in the music were way more joyful and luminous than jazz, for example, that was really about your freedom and acquiring freedom and exploring in different ways. So I wanted to see that, see what it looks like, to really take it in visually and emotionally so that my creation would be filled with, yes, the history and the moments, but also the visual, what it brings in me, and what emotion do these artists in the past made me feel. So I listened a lot to the things that made me vibrate as a kid. So from BB King, in the blues, he was very present in my childhood. Then Nina Simone, who's everywhere in all albums. She's been, you know, pushing me to be myself through the way she behaved and who she was. And then everything that has to do with Erykah Badu, Lauryn Hill, Aretha Franklin, you know, very
Mhm.
funny, the
Yeah.
Supremes, all that, all these emotions that they carried in their music, it stays with me. So I wanted to take that in and bring my version of it in a way in 3 albums that would be a continued story of our past and how powerful these musical genres are for these reasons specifically.
Yeah, 100%. And to take on such a, I mean, what you've done with the trilogy is such a, I mean, those albums are awesome. They're so good, and to be
Thank
able
you.
to, you know, take on, that's a big project. I mean, to take on those three categories of such an important part of music and of, you know, history in general. But like, I mean, to go, okay, I'm going to start with the blues, and here's this blue image, and to go along, did you write, like, you had all the paintings what finished, and then you started, okay, I'm going to start with this area of, you know, history that I want to focus on for this one thing, and then you wrote with that whole album, and then when did you be, or were you writing all of them kind of cohesively throughout the, because I mean you
I
released them over a handful of years, so I was just curious like
Yeah,
how the
we
process went.
we released them over, I believe, 4 years.
Hmm.
Um, I wrote them all at once at the very beginning,
Oh, you
but
did, okay.
I did, but I knew that there would be room for evolution and change. So that by the end of completing one album, I wanted to make sure that the evolved version of me, or the person that I became after that album, was also allowed to express herself in the following ones. So I feel like when you create a structure, you suddenly have more freedom to play around because you know what your playing field and your boundaries are for it to be
Hmm.
coherent. And that's what I really enjoyed in that trilogy, was going back when I finished the first album, realizing, okay, I'm now a different person. I see things a little bit differently. I learned from this process, and I want these lessons to be reflected in the following albums. So the second one, I really took a moment to see, okay, who am I now, and transform some of the songs, get rid of those that felt no longer relevant, create new ones, add on to the ones I had created, and do that journey every time for each album.
Wow, I love that process. I mean, like you said, you have like kind of the framework, right? You're like, okay, I have the songs. Here's the structure of all the songs, how they I want them to sound. But like at the end of the first album, okay, now let's go back and relook at the songs that are going to make the next record, or that I think might make the next record, and then what you re-listen to them, kind of come up with new concepts, new ideas, because you've evolved not only as a person, but I'm sure as an artist at that point, or a musician, and
Absolutely. Yeah.
so that must have been a pretty fun kind of, you know, project to go back and look at those songs that you had already had done maybe a year or so earlier, and, you know, change them a bit, or you freshen
Yes,
them
so
up.
much fun. Ah, so much fun. So much fun. And also, it's as if it's partially a form of diary, you know,
Uh-huh.
because you get to go back to, oh, that's what I was thinking about then. That's what I was writing about. I sometimes I feel still the same exactly, and that song still feels relevant. But then others, I'm like, oh, no, this is no longer something I believe in necessarily, or I don't see it the same way now. And the interesting part in that is also being able to write and have so much time before releasing it allowed me to, as much as possible, share what to me would be the closest to my notion of timelessness. Because I do hope these albums, you know, can go through time
Mhm.
and still be relevant in 5, 10, 20 years. So addressing the human condition and the emotions and the soul of who we are, that's something that will always be there. So this is something I really appreciate, and realizing at the same time that some of the topics I would address would be kind of not present in the social climate when I write them, but then they would become relevant after or more
Oh,
present,
yeah, I bet.
So that's always interesting to see as well, because I feel like it's as if music or creating from a place that is somewhat meditative allows you to foresee some things and also feed my own self with things that I might be needing. So if I need them, there is a strong chance someone else out there needs it too.
Mhm.
And that feels very powerful.
Yeah, and I mean, being able to go back, like you said, is and seeing like, oh, are these going to be timeless topics? Because I mean, you're doing your own kind of research with it, right? Like, I mean, you hadn't maybe listened to the songs or thought about what they would sound like or what they're going to sound like on an album for a year
Yes.
more, and then you're going back and like, oh, okay, yeah, this doesn't really feel like it should, or whatever it may be, or I can do this now and
Yeah.
change this, and then now it's a timeless piece, and you've had like a year or even probably more on the third album in the trilogy to really sit with it and see what is
Yeah.
gonna what you feel like. Are you still feel the same way, or what?
Mm.
How did your feelings change when it comes to these songs that you had written years prior, when it comes
Yeah,
to, putting them
absolutely.
out at that time? Wow.
Yeah. And feeling like some of them, like, oh, if you're not feeling relevant right now, this might be a sign. So that
Right.
was a really interesting journey. And I feel like it's a privilege to have so much time to do things. And it's a privilege that we took, because reality is we can feel the pressure from society to go at a very quick pace. And
Uh-huh.
people really tried to discourage me at the beginning, telling me, you can't do this. Now the trend is you need to release singles. And they were really saying that to help me because they wanted me to succeed. But the notion of success can be different for different people. Like to me, what feels like a success is if I make music that someone tells me this helped me go through this, or I really connected with this song. So this might take more time than the financial success that some people were looking for me,
Right.
hoping for me, like, oh, but you will make more money if you go out with a bang and, single by single. People don't have the attention span anymore, so
Hmm.
you should be careful. But it's not true. People do have the attention span. People do want to connect on a deeper level on a long-term basis, not be just one artist that I saw you in a playlist and you were amongst so many others and then I forgot your name because, that's very current right now. And I was
Yeah.
happy to follow my instinct and to actually feel like I did the right thing by listening to my internal voice and see that the challenge that I threw myself was welcomed by people.
100%. Yeah. I mean, how many artists are there out there that you maybe know one song, right? Or they
So
say their
many.
name, you're like, who? And then remember, it's the song that goes blah blah blah. Oh yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, okay, I know who that person is. But no,
exactly.
but there's no connection, there's no like investment in that art for a lot of
Yeah.
people, right? If you're just a number or a song on a playlist, oh, okay, that's Dominique. Like, yeah, oh yeah, she has that one song. Okay. But if your whole album comes out, then someone's invested, and now you have a tight group of people. It may be smaller on the streams of a song or whatever, but I mean, those are fans and dedicated people that
Yeah.
care about your story and care about your art, instead of, oh,
Yeah,
that's that one popular song that I liked for
exactly.
6 months.
Yeah, and I much rather that deeper connection with fewer
Hmm.
people than spreading all around and not really touching the heart profoundly. So this
Right.
feels like the right path for me, and I love going slow and steady. It feels good. It feels like, a natural, organic pace in this crazy world that's running around all the time.
Yeah, and I mean, you've been rewarded for it too, obviously, with
I
the
have.
success you've had. I mean, you won a JUNO Award. That's
It
so
is amazing.
wild.
It is wild. It is unthinkable. It is absolutely amazing. And it is to me a proof that it is important as an artist to listen to my gut feeling and to not necessarily follow any trend out there. And it's also the proof that I have the best team. I always knew it, but it's
Mhm.
as if it's like validation for external, because for the music to be heard, it means that I have a team that helped me make sure it reached the people. And that is another thing I'm extremely grateful for, because the journey with them has been so pleasant. And it's always about the journey, you know. We all say it's not the destination, it's the journey, but that's true. I think that's a saying for a reason. And I've been
Yeah.
enjoying and loving the journey.
Yeah. I'm curious just because of how the albums kind of fell as far as like timing goes. And, we had this gigantic pandemic and all these other things that went
Mm,
down. And like, there's a lot, not only the pandemic, but a lot of other, social issues were happening all during that
yeah.
time period. And you had these songs that you had written prior to all of that. How much of that changed, at least the course of that third album?
The interesting thing is that the third album is pretty much the one album that I changed the least.
Really? Because that was the one that would be the only one you could really that didn't come out prior to like the pandemic and everything.
Yeah, and it's funny because some of the topics that I stumbled upon in that album, when I re-listened as we were getting ready to record the third one, I realized it's as if I was already talking to myself to help myself go through this these times.
Wow.
I was generating the things that I needed at that point. So it felt weird to listen to the me of the past singing to the me of the future going through the pandemic, and seeing that she was already telling her it's all good,
Yeah,
everything's gonna be
this
okay.
yeah.
You know?
Whoa. Yeah, that's wild.
Yeah,
So
that
oh
was
yeah, so that
pretty
was the lead.
intense.
That's that I'm shocked that that's the one that you touched the least, to be honest.
I was shocked too. I was quite surprised to listen to it and see, although the world changed in such a crazy way, all of this remains relevant. But I do think a reason why it remained relevant is because for that album, wanting to generate the light, the sun, the connection, the direct connection with people, it is something I had thought of based on me rethinking about that time when, because basically when I stopped working, it was a form of burnout. And when I went into music all that time, and it was such a decisive time in my life that I would never change, because the heartache that I went through allowed me to free myself from things that no longer needed to be, and to really connect with my true essence and where I believe I'm supposed to be. So that form of joy and liberation and change and drastic change in my life was similar to a pandemic. I think a lot of us went through the pandemic in a way that changed us mentally. And I felt like that change had begun when I was in my burnout. So that felt pretty interesting to see the correlation
Mhm.
between the two.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Yeah, that's really fascinating. And so when it comes to obviously this is a new album that's coming out,
Yeah.
you because the process is totally different on this album. Obviously, you didn't rewrite the whole thing beforehand and kind of come back to it as a trilogy project. And it sounds like you're doing the painting linear with everything that's
Yeah.
happening with the process of this album. So, did you have an idea? Like, what started? How did it start? Was it okay? I'm going to sit down. I'm going to start painting something, and then it sparked this creative thing that ended up going in the realm of the music, or did you have some music that you had written or some lyrics or something, and then vice versa? Like, how? Tell me how this whole project started.
This time, I had to sit with myself for a minute to grieve the ending and celebrate the ending of that first trilogy, because
Mhm.
it was such a big part of my life and a big chunk of my creative process that, and I had been used to knowing exactly where I was going, what is the next step for 5 years.
Mhm.
So suddenly, blank slate was a bit scary, and then I turned that fear into excitement. And I realized, since I enjoy creating trilogies and I enjoy projects that are long term, I believe I do need to start another one. I had a feeling that I would do more than one trilogy, because there were quite a few things I wanted to cover that I knew would not fit in an album. And I
Mhm.
don't want to try to cram too much in one thing, because, like, why? If I don't feel like there's enough space, I could give myself the space that I want and spread it through 3 albums again. And starting a new trilogy in a different mind frame was a lot of fun because I already kind of had an idea how to do it. So it was
Mhm.
more about just the creation rather than figuring out how it works. That part is done. So now, okay, starting over. So it was about meditating over the continuity of it, the what that trilogy was going to be about, the fact that we were no longer exploring the past and other artists or other people's emotions. It was this time it's me. There's no more hiding behind anything. There's no more reflecting on the external. It's more a reflection of my internal world, my personal journey. And a lot of it went through working on myself because I feel like the art we provide is a reflection of us. So if I improve myself as a human, hopefully my art will be a reflection of that. So I think the first thing was really meditating upon that part. And I also went through a pretty intense period because I had a back issue injury that happened in 2020
Oh, I'm sorry.
that forced me, thanks. Yeah, but I actually, even now, I'm grateful for it because I went through the mental breakdown, if we want, the mental pain before the first trilogy. And this time being confronted with physical pain to create that new trilogy was such a different journey because I've never really felt pain that much. I always thought that if my mind and my spirit was aligned, the rest would follow. But now I truly understand how the physical and the mind, they say a healthy mind and a healthy body, these two do go hand in hand, and my body deserves care just as much as my mental health. So it was a different perspective. It was looking at music as a healer from another angle,
Mhm.
and that angle was a completely new field for me. So that was also exciting to discover how to use frequencies physically and the tangible aspect of frequencies. Really, that's something that fascinates me. When you look,
Mhm.
for example, at the spectrum of the frequencies we have and how little is visible,
Uh-huh.
this whole world happening that we don't see is where I want to go. I dream of colors that I've never seen. I dream of feeling them at least. So that's how I went about the new trilogy. It was really about the frequencies of the heart, like the heart chakra is green. So vibrating with my heart, sharing my heart, being more vulnerable about who I am, what I believe in, being more courageous to speak up and share these parts of me that I was perhaps shy to share before or afraid to be judged or to be classified as a hippie. You know, all these things were fears that I had that I am working on erasing and letting go because they're only holding me back in being more authentic in my creation.
Mhm.
So that journey was the starting point of that new trilogy and that album.
Okay. Wow. So this will be a part of a bigger piece.
Yes, it is.
Oh, exciting. Okay.
It is exciting. I'm so happy.
Wow. I definitely can empathize with the back pain thing. I've had 4 cervical spine surgeries on my neck, and
No, I'm so
yeah, it's
sorry.
brutal. So
Oh, that
I
sounds
know
painful.
I can't imagine like the back pain, neck pain is just I have like a real soft
We can
spot
do
for that.
anything. Yeah,
Yeah.
you realize how it's the start of it all, the spine.
Yeah.
It's incredible. And I was surprised to look back in old books that I had drawn in. And there's a drawing where I drew all the chakras, but I drew
Uh-huh.
them based on the skeleton of a human with the spine only.
Oh,
And then when I
wow.
saw this later, I actually saw it like a few days ago. I was like, okay, so I the spine was already very present and important. I was aware of its importance, but now I really know. I know, no, it
Yeah.
is, we can't do anything with our spine. It's insane.
Wow. I love that you are able to make those connections, like have these, pieces of art or things that you've done to be able to go back to and be like, oh wow, like, with that third album in the trilogy, like, oh, I needed this now. Or
Yeah,
you drew these spines with the different chakras, and you're like, oh, like, okay, now I understand why I had that there. It's like you're doing it subconsciously and then figuring it out later. Like I find that really fascinating. And yeah,
I love
frequencies
it.
and all that stuff. I love that. Like sound baths and like how certain frequencies can do. Have you ever seen those videos where like they play different notes and it makes these like the waves of the
Patterns.
water? Yeah, the
Yes.
patterns. It's like
Fascinating.
so fascinating. Like,
Sacred geometry.
yes, yes. And I noticed that you have
Mhm.
1111 in your profile on your
I do.
Instagram. I'm like within the past like year and a half, I've just been like nerding out hard on like numerology, and I didn't know if that was a part of where you pulled that from.
Numbers are huge in my life. I have a soft spot for the right numbers, the right dates, the right time. And it makes me feel like I'm thinking maybe I'm all creating and making up these connections in my mind because I have a wild imagination, but it works and it makes me happy. So no matter where it's from, if it's true or not, I'm gonna keep doing it. But seeing all these magical hours, all these 11/11s, 1/11, and thinking it might be, you know, the universe telling me you're on the right path, you're doing the right thing, there's a message behind it. It just makes my day a little bit more fun. So I
Yeah,
take it all.
I love it. Yeah, I just if you haven't, you should. There's like a website you can go to. You type in your information, like your full name, your full birth name, your birthday, and it'll give you like your numerology sequence, and it's really wild. Like my numbers, like I have one of the same numbers as my wife, and my
Oh,
son has
wow.
my number. Like it's just like how it all like
The next,
connects. It just
yeah.
it's like so mind blowing. It's like, oh my gosh, like I can't even like
And no,
there's
it's
something so true to it that everything's a
it
zero
be
and a one that adds up to something, right?
yes, absolutely. And it becomes hard to not believe in it because sometimes it's so huge and in your face that
Mhm.
it would not even be rational for you not to believe in it.
Right. Right. Yeah. So numerology is something that just it blows my mind. And like the fact that and when I saw that you had 1111, I was like, okay, this is cool. I need to ask her about that. Uh, wow. Okay. So you're doing the album with this painting. And for the next two, or do you not know this far ahead? Are you going to do something similar as far as start your painting when the album and see what that looks like for the next two following it, or what are you
Yeah.
thinking?
Yeah, I'm thinking I'm gonna, well, since it's in the now, this trilogy is more about now and me. I
Uh-huh.
want to follow my gut feeling every step of the way and go with what feels right. And use this also as a reminder that deep down, we often or actually always know what we're supposed to do. We sometimes choose not to, or we
Mhm.
get scared, or, you know, we question, we doubt, but there is that core self deep down that knows. And I want to listen to that voice and practice listening to that voice as much as possible to I get until I get to the point where I just listen to it always and I have no more thinking to do ever. And it's all feeling and gut feeling and following step by step what feels right.
I love that. Well, and you're yeah, I can't wait to hear the album when it comes out. You've put out a few songs thus far. I know from the album. The most recent one was "Feeling Like a Plan." I think that's a new one that you put out.
Yes, it is.
Yeah. Well, tell me a little bit about that song, and then I know you're doing a tour coming up as well, or into the next year. You got a lot of exciting things on the way.
A lot of exciting things, and these are just exciting things I know of. So I'm so excited for the surprises, you know?
Yeah.
There's a lot coming and I'm very happy. Feeling Like a Plant is, well, the album is called Our Roots Run Deep.
Mhm.
The first song is Our Roots Run Deep. So I wanted to start the album with the roots because this is where we feed ourselves. It is connecting us the same way trees are all connected underground. I think humans are all connected in a field we don't see, the same way we don't see the roots. And our ancestors feed us, other people feed us, things that we don't see feed us. And I wanted to end with Feeling Like a Plant because this is me in the now, how I feel. And the leaves and the branches reaching all the way high up there. So it's really the whole album representing the tree from the roots to the leaves that are chilling in the sun. And I also felt like a tree quite often, or a plant when I meditate in the sun. I love the sun. The sun is my friend. It is one of the main things that I need in my life to be well. And just like a plant, we need the sun, we need some water, drink water, everybody, and we need some love and care. So all the plants in my house that I connect with made me feel like a reminder that we are nature as well. When we say we're going in nature, we could easily just go in ourselves and be in nature because we're as organic as any plant. And then connecting with these external beings and realizing how they interact with us, how they interact with each other, is something that I wanted to share in a song. The light, sunny aspect of sitting still, taking in the sun and all the benefits that it has to bring us, and generate more joy through that.
Mhm. I love that. Yeah. I mean, it's so true. The sun provides so much, obviously vitamin D and everything else. And then there's, have you heard of grounding? I'm sure you have, where you're supposed to walk around outside with no shoes on. Like that's, I feel
Yes,
like all those things, little things, I feel like are so powerful. And it's just something that's so,
simple.
and yeah, simple. That's the right word.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, it
Just
is
like,
so
oh, I
simple
can
and
just
it
walk
makes
around in the
sense.
grass for 15 minutes, like
And
with
feel
no
better.
shoes on and feel better. Oh,
Mhm.
okay.
Yeah, why
Yeah.
not? Why not try
Right.
it for
Right.
sure?
Um,
100%.
well,
I feel like our energetic roots are grounding when we do that, you know?
yeah, yeah, no, 100%. And it's really, it makes sense. It all makes sense, but it's like something is so simple. Like you said, it's like, oh yeah,
Yeah,
okay, that does add up. But like, yeah. Well, I
for sure.
appreciate your time today. Thank you so much for doing this.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Yeah. I have one more question for you before I let you
Sure,
go.
of
I want to
course.
know if you have any advice for aspiring artists.
Be yourself, learn to know yourself and what message you want to share, and do not let others' fear or um, ideas influence that or dim your light. Because by being your true self and authentic to you, there's no two of you. There's one only, and the world deserves to know that one person, that authentic and unique self that you have to bring. That will make our world much richer if everyone allows themselves to be and to be seen for who they are.
Bringing it backwards.